I'm Rich Lieberman. It's live, and you talk about an assortment of stuff that hit my cranial member here today. And I do believe in karma, good or bad. I really do believe it. I myself have dealt with karma. And what I mean by that is, there are things that just happen for a reason. We've heard that line, and that deals with me too. And this broadcast really is kind of a come to grips moment for me, and possibly for you too, because it's deals with a lot of the fact that well, let me just cut to the chase. So I got one of these form letters from YouTube, and they basically have cut back some of the features um, that I was entitled to, that I wasn't even aware of. I thought that I was sort of out there and providing a forum for critical commentary with regards to media matters, not just media, but culture and pop virtue and things of that nature. And I've had some limitations put on me. I guess because I've been told that I should be more positive, as YouTube puts it. I'm not knocking YouTube. Let's just say that they have community standards and all that. And in any event, combine that with my overall feelings and feedback that I get, and a lot of people are telling me to be more positive. And I tell people, look, I'm not on a click generator. I don't get paid because of clicks. I don't get any kind of fiscal or financial uh, backing based on the number of clicks. I don't do outrageous material. And the outrageous, what you might consider outrageous material that I do is not intended to be mass culture. It's very subliminal, it's very limited, both literally and geographically. I make references to past local, shall we say, providers, anchor people, weather people, news anchors, sports, that kind of a thing. Um, and as far as me being more positive, folks, the world in which we live in today, hate to say this, breaking news, but it's sort of an unpopular world in which we live in now. And it's hard to be positive, especially in a media situation where we have our product has become so deformed and so, use this phrase again till I'm blue in the face, marginalized. We simply don't have the the recognition factor that we used to have. And what I mean by that is the fact that, look, I look and gaze every day at our internet, at our mass media culture, and I shake my head. I do. It's a lot better nationally than it is here. This place just takes the cake in mediocrity, in malpractice performance that is really gone to the you know what. That is, I've used also the phrase into the abyss, where and it's not just the editorial concept. It's it's quite simply look and listen. Look out there and listen at what was once really heralded news stations and sports stations, even our entertainment so called product stations, or at least those that center on certain things. And I don't know about you, but I'm at a loss for words. And what I have tried to do here, by virtue of, well, my own sense of humor, my own visual in terms of putting out what I believe is a frank assessment of the current media moments that we all share every day, whether we like it or not, just by the fact of tuning in here or looking around the net or watching, those few of you that do this, watching TV news and listening to the radio, which would be a very tragic occurrence in your life if you had to do that. We've regressed, folks. Some of it is not, you know, it's some of it is forced. Some of it is the fact that it's just the moment that we live in. But we've all also, a lot of us have become devalued too. We don't have the kind of appetite, I guess, for being critical. And everybody is just kind of lazy. And myself included, by the way, where we've become resigned to deal with what we have now. And I'm not on to some philosophical, holier than thou, high, but like, I'm superior than you, that kind of a thing. Or we used to have this kind of a historical uh, values that we used to have, and now we no longer have. We don't. We absolutely don't. And our product has become a lot less effective. So we've reached a point where, oh my God, mediocrity would be absolute bona fide worthy of an award. But we're not even there yet either. So when I got this letter, it was a form letter, but from YouTube, I thought to myself, this is kind of getting to a point now. And I don't want to say this because I don't want to give in to anybody. I don't. But, and I've stopped the daily rigor of dealing with the assholes. I don't want to use the word, the computer word about these folks. They're destined to just be jerks. And they have shit going on in their own lives. I have shit going on in my life. I have a very complex sort of crap going on in my own life. And I've tried to stay positive in that respect. But I'm here not to give you La-Di-Da and Peter Pan and Snow White. I'm here to give you a realistic assessment of what I believe my freedom of speech is, how I feel. And many of you disagree with me. Many of you agree. Some of you don't or aren't as vociferous in agreeing or disagreeing with me. You just watch and you just take part. And like myself, have an opinion or two about certain things, and for which I have a profound amount of respect, by the way. Those of you that take the time to actually listen and to understand my cynicism, my relentless negativity is based upon not generating crap and manufactured histrionic so I can get clicks, so I can appease the trolls, so I can kind of have a virtuous feeling and try to present more positive feedback. That's not my job. That's why we call it critical thinking and critical thought. Not being manufactured tripe and not being negative for the sake of being negative. Hell, I wish I could be more positive. I really do. I wish I could say, that John Sanders or Jim Sanders or Joan Sanders or whomever was really effective. From time to time, I do say that, folks. You know that if you've watched me or read me in the past, for which I'm going to talk about pretty soon. Stay tuned. And I just don't see that. And it's an unfortunate aspect of the culture in which we live in today. Not everything is terrific. There is no gold standard anymore. There is no old fashioned CBS News in its heyday of the Cronkites and the Severides and the Mike Wallaces and the Steve Crofts and the Harry Reisners and all of those, Sam Donaldson and George Will. We have nimskulls and numbskulls and boobheads and dumbheads highlighting our various media today. And I point that out. I wish I could say certain things and give glowing recommendations and reviews, but I can't. I've tried my best. And even if I could, that's not my duty. The little duty that I have. I try to be fair. I have my own opinions. I know a lot of times I'm in the minority opinion, but that's just me. I got really old and wise. I used to think a lot that my mother was kind of out of tune, but mom was probably right. And she'd be laughing at me in a nice way if she were alive today. And I, by the way, used to build and still do a lot of my thought process and my product, if you will, based on my mother. My mother raised me. My mother was my best friend. She had me, which was then number four. I was the oldest, late in her life. She was about a little over 40 years old, which means the good was I was there. Thanks, mom, for not practicing birth control. But when you get an older parent, then as you grow old, they're older. So I had to experience that bittersweet aspect of growing up with my mom. By the time I was born, my mom and dad were already divorced. They they still had a life together, but it was nothing like, the traditional nuclear so-called family. And my mom taught me a lot. She was there, like every mother usually is when things go bad. And I drew a lot from her. And she knew when to tell me, sucker, you're a pain in the ass, but I'm telling you for your own good. I love you and all that, which she did and was always. But she also taught a side of me that things are not always glamorous. And she used to use a phrase a lot. I'm wise to you. She wouldn't say it just to me. She knew about certain things. She wasn't perfect, of course not. She was an old Brooklyn woman who was independent, who raised four kids on her own and was very, very, shall we say, generous and wonderful and fantastic and loving and caring and all the things that you associate with a mother and then some, all the while being wise to you and understanding. Used to say that a lot to my oldest sister, for whom I have a very fractured relationship with, if at all any kind of relationship. That doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. Doesn't mean with you guys that I try to come on here and project some sort of assholish attitude. I've become kind of an asshole in my own right, but that's just the fact that my negativity is based a lot about growing up and seeing things for what and I had a stark and present tense do have a stark feeling about certain things. What you may deem as average to okay to quite good is to me quite mediocre and dreck at its worst. And I'm critical in that way. I know a lot of you out there think that I have this kind of uh, glee factor about putting people down. Folks, I don't try to put anybody down. I take shots at people who I think are insensitive themselves, who put on a false kind of bravado, who act quite differently off camera than they do on camera. You might be saying, well, all they owe us is what they do on camera. If they happen to work, let's say, in TV news, or they work whatever they do in media and all that. And that's true, generally speaking. But when you experience that aspect and you have privy to knowing full well what a person is like when the camera is off or when the microphone goes off, and how they perform and how they present themselves, then yes, I'm sorry, you have a right to say, like I do, who they really are and what they stand for, as opposed to what they kind of project and what they really are in reality. And a lot of these cretins, they're worse than that, these malcontents. But they put on this persona, this kind of act as if they're holier than thou themselves, and they're not. That's one of the things that grates me about the media today is the fact I understand why a vast majority of the public has such a low feelings about our mass media because they're cynical. Of course they are. I am. Of course I am. But every now and then we want realness and people to be genuine and not false and not disingenuous. And they're not. And those that have this really great feeling of themselves, yet behind the scenes, they're real jerks or complete assholes. They are. But they try to put on a like fake news presentations of themselves. The public is up to you. They understand. They're not gleeful having to watch a CNN or a Fox News or an MSNBC or whatever the hell you want to choose your outlet, pick your poison. Do they do some good things every now and then? They do, which is why we still trust them to some degree because without them, we're really in the you know what load. We have to kind of realize that the government, by and large, does not want you to have the frank assessment, to have the feelings that you should have and already have developed, like most people have. But my overall theme has been I try to be genuine. I have no outside influence telling me what to say and all that. Although ironically now I do, because I see the handwriting is on the wall. And there are people out there, I'm experiencing that now too, who want to silence me and censor me. Yes, I censor comments on my blog. Absolutely, I do, because the people who send out negative crap, personal attacks against me do so, the vast 90% majority of them, without telling me who they are and what have you. Yes, I rip. Yes, I criticize. Yes, I am vastly indifferent and absolutely outspoken. But I do so with my name at the top of the mast head. I never go after anyone's family, even if they go after my family, which is me. I never attack their kids, even if they go after me. I don't have kids that I know of, but I understand that. But I am there. I am not anonymous. I don't make charges and rip people and beat them to death with hyperbole, with very sick and demented comments without identifying myself. And even then, if they've done it to me, by and large, I will allow them to speak once or twice, but after that, no. Because I believe if you're going to be very vociferous and angry and attack me and be rather mean spirited and go beyond a normal attack professionally and go personal, at the very least, you should, yes, identify yourself because it's really cowardice if you don't. And you have to live with that. But yes, I'm not going to publish comments like that because that's not how I roll. So you can condemn me, you can rip me, you can belittle me, you can buffoon me, you can say all the worst things that you want to say about me, but I am public about who I go after. And it's all publicly, of course, stated by moi based on their work, not who they are, not the color of their skin, not the fact of their gender. I go after everybody: man, women, gay, straight, Chinese, Jewish, Baptist, Christian. Don't care about those factors. I go after the individual. That I can say with 100% conviction. So now you're left with maybe you want a different message, or maybe I'm not the guy for your taste, but I've been consistent for what I've done. This is not a sign off because I don't know what the future holds, but this letter sort of stuck in my cranial up here. So I have to decide A and B. Should I keep doing this? And yes, by the way, I have asked for donations, unlike others who ask for donations in maybe a far sexier way, maybe more subliminal. I am a one man band. I do all the work here. And while it's computer work, I'm not lifting crates or barrels. It nonetheless is work. I have a very, very limited physical situation, which prevents me from doing a lot of writing, which I used to love to do, was to write. But my eyesight's not that great. I am type 2 diabetic, for which most of my mechanisms are limited. And while a limited amount of weight could be lost, and I'm trying my best to do that so I can get my health back, a lot of it is difficult to perform. And when you're not making much money and you're finding it more difficult to even break even with the investment that you've placed here, then it becomes more difficult, which is why one of the reasons why I went to YouTube, to try to give you some not only information vehicles, but an entertaining vehicle. So, am I going to stop now? No. Today? No. I'll let the market dictate my future in that regard. And hopefully, I just wanted to, and I go off on a lot of tangents. I know, folks, I'm not perfect. I have not the most beautiful of backgrounds with my little TV monitor and my nameplate and all that. But, to me, it's always been about substance, and that is who you're watching and not whether or not you like little bookcases in the back and bobbleheads and pretty little things and manufactured shit in the background. I'm just Rich Lieberman, for better or for worse. And I give you reality and I give you a taste of my life, which it isn't always beautiful and rosy and three eggs and scrambled and nice hot coffee, Pete's coffee, and in the morning. I wish I could be Brady Bunch instead of All in the Family. Now, that's a mixed metaphor, but I think you know what I mean. I'm just trying to do my best. So I'll wait for the reaction and so forth. And I hope you are having a wonderful summer. And I thank you for watching and thank you for listening.